So sometimes there are beliefs that we have been brought up with that need to be dismantled, and we need to shift our thinking, because we are not always brought up with a value system that allows us to have integrity in our person and in our thoughts and to behave morally. And sometimes certain things are acceptable where we come from. But as we enter a more diverse workplace, they may no longer be acceptable. So recognizing and changing these long-held beliefs of ours will take practice. Can you give us some strategies and some tips for those who are just entering this type of environment, practical tips that they could implement to change those long-held beliefs and change the way they think and view the world?
Yeah. Look, harnessing diversity is it's a very difficult thing, and therefore it's not even something that you can just give the kind of quick tips, quick fixes, because even in organizations take long to actually fix those kind of things, to take away some of those long-held beliefs, and as a result, to be able to do this, and for those especially who go into the workplace with some level of academic training, they need to, I think, go back to some of the fundamentals. First is really start challenging your own value system. Ask yourself exactly how are you in relation to the world, and be honest and start going into those elements about, in relation to the world, how am I and who am I in relation to the world? What kind of a world do I want to live in? And do not take everything for granted on face value. I'll give you a current example. I mean, we just spoke about the World Cup, but we are right now faced with the Palestine and Israel war. We're faced with Russia and Ukraine. It's easy to cast blame. It's easy to say who's wrong, and it's easy to say who should die and all of those things. And I guess these are the questions that the leaders in those countries are faced with all the time, and the rest of the world. Fundamentally, it goes to first as an individual. What is your values? Do you choose to therefore mold other people and kill them and then say, we'll talk later? What is it on an individual level first? What is that you're comfortable with? And if you realize that your world does not match up with the rest of the world, then question those, challenge yourself, do yourself a favor and challenge, because you still have a long life to live. I always want to encourage young people to become universal citizens. Your country, or let's call it your village, your township, your town, your city is not good enough to make you a universal citizen. You need to travel. And sometimes travel out of your province to another province. See and understand people. If you really want to understand rural environment, go live amongst people and see them and visit. But also go travel across the country. People in South Africa, for argument's sake, if they were to just go across to Zimbabwe, they would have a different view about Zimbabweans who are in South Africa. If they go to China or to India, they'd have a different view, but just being exposed to an environment like that. So encourage young people to become universal citizens and actually even go and work at the rest everywhere in the world so that they can grow from that perspective. Do a little bit of research. Do not take things for granted. Do not take things at face value. Whenever you work into the workplace and you find things are the way they are, and you find there's a way that this management team is treating people, do not immediately react without understanding their context and background, so that when you engage with it, you at least have some basis to engage on this. And that research can also be some academic research that helps you understand why people behave the way they do. I mean, I get shocked when I listen to Malcolm X and the history of Palestine and Israel. And it's been so long. If I didn't listen to that or read a little bit about that, I would be completely lost in terms of understanding what's going on there and what's been going on there for the longest of time. So sometimes it's really about not just taking things at face value as a young person. It's easy to just look at Instagram and make statements, or get onto Twitter, because those are just views that are just very superficial to a great extent. You need to dig a little bit more before you actually form your view and opinion around these things. And so at an individual level, those are the kind of things you can do. But it's okay to challenge companies and organizations. to say, but what are we doing at the policy level? What are we doing at the level of strategy? Do we have goals to achieve about how do we integrate different races and different genders, different sexual orientation? If those things are so obvious that they're not being managed well in the organization, I think the young people of today must not sit back and be quiet. I mean, in the past, we just spoke about gays and lesbians. Now we're talking LGBTQI++ and whatever, right? All of those. If we don't immerse ourselves in understanding all this difference, we will be living in the years where it was just gays and lesbians. But right now, we need to understand all so that we can be able to harness the difference of all. So young people are in a fundamentally, I think, great opportunity. Use technology to understand these things and actually make organizations turn around and actually do things right and do them better.
And how important then is, as a young person, changing your social circle? Because as you said, you travel, you get to see people, you get to see different environments. But in the same way, if I only hang out with people that are exactly like me, I only know people that are exactly like me. I only understand backgrounds that are exactly like me. So for a young person, a very easy thing to do is to grow your social circle, include people from different backgrounds, and that way perhaps you can build understanding about where people come from and harness diversity and embrace differences.
I mean, that's an absolute perfect way of doing it, because of you. Nobody, and I think there's an idiom in my language, in Setswana, that refers to that notion that if you don't travel the world, you'll marry your sister, right? Or your cousin's sister in a way. So you don't grow by being around people who are similar to you, or who have similar thoughts, or who have similar ideas. It's no growth. But once you challenge yourself, enter into a space with your network of people who are different from you, that's where growth happens. And you need to open yourself, that be vulnerable, I would say, to that difference. Because people who are different from you are going to raise different things, say things differently, see the world differently. And if you immerse yourself in that difference, you will come out a much better individual. So yes, grow your network of people, and not just even men and women, young and old, South African and non-South African. To just grow that network, if you like. Make your circle bigger with people who are different from you, and you will learn. Do not be scared of entering into the space. It's almost like going to a nightclub. When you go and dance on the floor, like, you don't choose who you dance with. As long as the vibe is going, you go dance, right? So just go dance on that floor and enjoy that floor, because that's where it's everything. It's a melting pot. And you come out of that, you feel like, oof, the sweat is gone, the energy I've released. Why? Because there's so much energy that you also absorb from other people, right? Because of you danced with different people there. That's the power of diversity. Use the energy around you to become a better individual.